Well, hello, it's Andrew Eborn here. And this is the Andrew Eborn Show with very, very special guests. Ah, there you go, putting the fun into dysfunctional. This is the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and some very, very special guests, because this is the last one we're going to do before Christmas, before we come galloping back in the new year. And we started on St Andrew's Day with my very special guest. We're going to finish the year with my equally special guest, the wonderful Reverend Canon Roger Hall. How are you, Roger?
All the better for seeing you, Andrew, in that wonderful jumper.
Do you like it? The Grinch, the Grinch. I hate Christmas, but I love.
Great. You've obviously put your special
Christmas.
jumper on.
It's got to be good. And I tell you what, you look Christmassy all year round in your glorious red.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I thought as you were going to dress up, I would dress up in my special royal cassock today, which always reminds three things about this cassock. One is that I'm one of the few people that can wear this, only a small number of us, because we're chaplains to the Queen, which is why it's scarlet. Second, of course, it reminds me of my football team, Liverpool. And thirdly, at this time of the year, of course, it all fools all the children because they think I'm dressed up as Father Christmas.
Ah, we love it, we love it. But you always bring those wonderful blessings and things like that. What does Christmas mean to you, Roger?
Well, for me, Christmas is a really special time of the year. It's one of the times of the year that I most enjoy. And I enjoy it for a couple of reasons. First of all, because of being here at the Tower of London, which is so magical and special at Christmas, with its 20+ Christmas trees all around the Tower of London, the White Tower twinkling in its floodlight and all the rest of it. Something really, really special about the atmosphere here. And we have all these carol services that go on, 20+ of them. People often say to me, Roger, are you not harped out by the time you get to Christmas? You've sung Hark the Herald Angels Sing for the 23rd time. And of course, the truth is that I am a bit, but this year, I said to my wife last night, which should have been, I think, carol service number 9, do you know, Barbara, I'm really beginning to miss the carol services this year. There's something missing. So there's the tower element to it, which is really important to me. And I think the other bit...
I'll tell you what I was going to say, Roger, is what I love every time we come to the tower. It is so wonderful, so magical, so inspirational, seeing all the yeomen, all the beefeaters dressed up in their finery at this time of year. It really is a very moving experience.
Yeah, there's something, and we have, of course, at Christmas time as well. On the Sunday before Christmas, we have what's called one of the famous state services. These happen 3 times a year and go right back to the time of Henry VIII, when the yeoman body, led by the constable and the governor in all their fine kit as well, march slowly, a bit like the Chelsea pensioners, all the way to church. And then they come in here in all their Tudor clothes, glittering. And you can imagine in the candles and everything else that's in here. It just seems so magical and very, very, very special. And I think, I mean, I'm not really, of course, we've got no evidence really of this, that it's hard to prove it, but I think this is the first time for years and years and years that it's not happened. It even happened all the way through the First and Second World War, but Corona has put a pay to that this year. But you are absolutely right. There's something very special and magical about the tower with its body of yeoman warders and the time of year. Yes,
and what I love as well, though, Roger, is that you have now got an international audience. I mean, people know you and they've heard you, but with streaming, you do your posh version, God's version of Zoom, whatever that might be. But you've got an international audience now, haven't you?
Well, do you know something, Andrew? That's really kind of you to say that, and I feel that's an enormous privilege to be speaking to people all over the world. But, you know, the message of Christmas is also totally international as well, because it's about celebrating and remembering the birth of a babe at Bethlehem 2,000 years ago, that 2,000 years on still has the power and magic to make people think again about what's important and the values of life. And there's something really special about that. And that, as you rightly put, is absolutely international. The message is the same wherever you are in the world. And when I was in the army, as you know before, I came here 14 years ago, I celebrated Christmas I was telling people, in the middle of Borneo in a jungle, when sweat was pouring off me, thinking this is not very Christmassy, to the Oman, to Northern Ireland, to Bosnia, and all over the place. So you are right. The message is the same wherever we are in the world, about this tiny, vulnerable child. And anybody that's been privileged enough to have children, grandchildren, or just to be around and go and visit somebody who's had a small baby will know again how magical and important and wonderful that all is. I just wanted, can I just say that, because I was thinking about this as I was preparing to come here into the chapel. I always, when I baptize children, I look at them and I hold them in my arms and I baptize them, just as, old Simeon did in the temple when he took Jesus. And I think to myself, what is this child going to turn out to be? Is this Mother Teresa? Or Lewis Hamilton, is this Donald Trump in the making? Or what is it? What is going to happen? We don't know.
We
That's
absolutely
all about
don't know.
hope and expectation.
And I'll tell you what, one final thought then, Roger, is that we've all had a fairly challenging year.
Yeah.
What would your message of hope be for 2021?
Hang in there. Hang on there. Don't give up. Have faith that we as a community, that we as a nation and we as a world will pull through this as we always have done. Hang in there. It will get better. There's real light at the end of the tunnel now, just as there's always been, that light will prevail over darkness, goodness will prevail over evil, and we'll get through this pandemic. Our hearts go out to those that have been affected, died from it, and are still poorly. But in memory of them, and in token of them, we know it will get better. Hang on in faith.
Roger Hall, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your lovely words.
Thank you, and God bless you all, and have a very happy Christmas and every blessing for 2021, when hopefully I'll see many of you again, and you in a different jumper.
Come on. I'll say it with the yeoman. I think they'd like this, wouldn't they? Roger, thanks so much. Have a lovely Christmas.
Bye.
Take care. The wonderful Roger Hall, who topped our show on St Andrew's Day when we launched this extraordinary Andrew Eborn show, and he finishes off for the wonderful Christmas message. And we're going to go to the other side of the world now. Manny Patel, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing brilliantly well, and I love your little backdrop. What on earth have you got on the wall?
Well, it's all film canisters that I've acquired from recycling bins throughout LA. I'm that cheap.
Oh, is that right? No, but I love it. It's a great backdrop because I go around the world and most people have their little books over here. They're promoting them. Mike Reed, he's got loads of books, which that's the one, every time I Zoom with him, that's all he ever promotes. What I love is that it's really rather creative. But tell me, I mean, LA in lockdown must have been hell, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been awful. Well, first of all, LA is all about glamour, the parties, the stores, the people. And first of all, the people, right now, they're walking around in their pajamas, going to the shops. That's all they can do. The red carpets, there are no red carpets, so no events. Everyone's locked in and miserable. And on top of that, we just had all these, protests in town. So we ended up having all our windows of all these nice stores all around LA, all boarded up with pieces of wood, and it just looks atrocious.
Yeah, it must be really, really tough on that sort of basis. But I mean, we worry about the film and TV industry and how they're coping in lockdown. Apart from the fact they've got no film canisters because you've nicked them all.
I've taken all of them.
You take them all. I realise that, rummaging through the bids. Tell me about the state of the industry, because Disney has announced that they're doing things in a very different way. What's happening with the film industry?
So right now, we're 45% down from all filming from this time last year. And secondly, as you've seen with Batman, if a main character or a main actor, or someone or a producer has COVID, the entire production shuts down. And who swallows the cost is the studios, because the insurance doesn't always cover it. So that's always something that's been at the back of everyone's mind. So that doesn't really help with Matt as much. And I think productions overseas are a lot more sort of progressive right now as opposed to LA. I mean, we're in like week 2 now of lockdown, and then I want to push it further and further and further.
Yeah, it is a bit tough, isn't it? And I think the other thing is that there are things to look forward to, though. So I've got the Andrew Eborn show. I understand that Manny Patel is muscling in. He's going to have a show all about you. What's that about?
Yeah, I can't talk about it too much, but it's basically about me going around LA and helping people and putting people together, and still very, 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 in development, and just watch this space. That's all I can say.
Oh, no, that sounds rather fun. And you talking about watching spaces. One of the spaces that you were very well known at was obviously Heaven over here. Talk to me about your experiences there and who used to come along when you were there.
I think so. I mean, you do look familiar. I mean, I was there from like early 2000s till 2008. And at that time, we had people like Ian McKellen turn up. We had like Cilla Black. We had Graham Norton. There was a fixture every week. Alan Carr used to come down. Dame Judi Dench came to see Cher at one point. That was slightly before my time, but I was there when she was there.
And so, and you don't recognise me from there because I haven't been recently. But I think the interesting thing is the wonderful stories because they attract everybody, don't you? You've got Graham Norton, Dame Judi Dench. What was your favourite story of that time?
I wasn't there at the time, but it was when Kenny Everett set himself on fire in one of the toilets in the VIP. Apparently, someone had unscrewed a bottle of some sort, which is quite flammable, and Kenny Everett lit his cigarette in the stall next door, and a big puff of like flame went, in the cubicle.
Do not try this at home, viewers.
Do not try this at home.
It's always a little bit worrying. Now, tell me, because I mean, Pride this year obviously has been very different. Talk to me about that in Hollywood.
So, every year for the last, it will be 6 years now, but I was brought in by the British consulate to organise their Pride float. And one year we did Ab Fab the movie. And we had 50 Eddie and Patsy's walking down the street, drinking and smoking, representing the UK government. It was probably the most fabulous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But this year, because of lockdown, we couldn't do anything. So they had something called All Black Lives Matter protest instead. And it was a peaceful protest, and they painted a really good mural on Hollywood Boulevard, right where the Oscars are held, and it was great. But unfortunately, people like myself who are on a green card here can't really, take part in it because we're not US citizens. So
what a shame! What a shame! But you mentioned the Oscars. You mentioned the Oscars, and one thing you have been allowed to take part in is the Oscars. Give me your favourite tale. Last bit of scandal. Last little bit of this is how people are going to remember.
With the Oscars,
Manny Patel, what are you going to do? There's what, sorry?
Well, no, I didn't do anything, but I did get to sit second row at the Oscars this year by some fluke. I was there with DJ Paul Oakenfold, and we were sitting right at the top of the 5th row, like second to back row, like looking out like this, And then all of a sudden, within the first commercial break, we get taken to the VIP area on the first floor, and a friend of mine says, Rebel Wilson's going to be in makeup for 5 hours dressed as a cat. Do you want her seat? And I went, no brainer, duh. So I went rushing off, and I got to sit there, and I got sat, and probably the last time I'm ever going to be around all those A-listers all at once. And I said to myself, what am I going to do next year? And, look what happened, COVID.
Oh, what a shame. And I'll tell you what, that particular Oscars, every single person in that extraordinary movie, Cats, would have willingly given up their seat, not to sit through the abuse they got. So, good old Rebel Wilson. Manny Patel, it's lovely to see you. Have a wonderful Christmas. And we'll see you in the new year. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Well, I'll tell you one of the good things that's happened during these extraordinary times is various people have been fairly productive, and we have launched Stellar TV. Could you believe it? The years and years of planning, the pre-meetings before things happen down in Cannes, these take generations to do. And Mike Reed, a legendary broadcaster, was there at the very beginning. How long did it take, Mike?
I think it was October, wasn't it?
I think it was actually a lot later than I can tell you when it was. We set up Stellar TV in November, and November the 16th. And you were on a radio station, United DJs. What happened?
We started the Heritage Chart because there were so many artists that weren't getting a fair crack of the whip, and still aren't, from national radio here. And they're still making good records, they're still writing good songs. But I talked to several of them, and they said, we're just not getting a look in anymore, and that's our career. This year has been bad as it is, and next year for PRS, for songwriters, it's going to be bad, the knock-on effect from this year. So 21 weeks ago, I created the Heritage Chart, and they love it. It's great. We've taken it onto TV. We're on a TV series as well, and doing bits on here, so fine. You know you can only see the I hate, don't you? Is that general? I hate, just generally.
Because I normally love, you see, this is rather good. My family got me this last Christmas, you thought, and I thought it's rather good. The Grinch, you see, it's the
But we can't see the Christmas.
Oh, you can't see the Christmas?
We can only see the hate.
Is that right? It's got to be good. But it was that sort of side where, you're right, you created, I remember you came down with me to Cannes several times. Fantastic thing to give a spotlight for artists who are not normally getting a spotlight. I think that's absolutely glorious. To give it a wider audience, you've been doing that was then, this is now. Talk to me about that series.
Yeah, that was a TV series. Mike Stock, a legendary producer, phoned me and said, like what you're doing with the Heritage Chart. We had an idea of doing it on TV, so I went down and we produced this series, which is wonderful, and the artists loved it. It's like everyone says it's like a new Top of the Pops. The choreography, the lighting, the sound, 5K, it was really, really good. And we just did a Christmas special last night to wind it up, probably more in the new year. So we just felt we were sort of almost creating a sort of parallel industry for heritage artists, and they love it. And it's now crept into Wiki as well, where people said we were #1 on the Heritage Chart. So in a very short space of time, it's got out there. It's a bit like somebody saying to the university students in Ireland, here's a word, make sure everybody knows this word in a week's time. So that's happened really with the Heritage Chart.
And I'll tell you what, you talk about artists, they absolutely adore it. I see all their social media postings from Owen Paul, and you've got Carol Decker from Tapau, and you've got wonderful people. You've got Kim
Paul Young, Toya, Kim Wilde, I mean,
all the sound of my youth, which I love. It's got to be good. But what's interesting as well is that not only are you doing that with the Heritage Chart, you've come over to Stella TV, where you're going to be doing 1-to-1 with Mike Reid. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think that kicks off, I don't know when this goes out, so it kicks off at some point.
I can tell you, it kicks off, it's already kicked off. We did, because you've got a few in the can.
I knew that.
You do that, so I'm glad we rehearsed this.
Yeah.
14th of December is when it kicked off, and it started, the first episode went out straight after the Andrew Eborn show, whoever he is, at 9 o'clock, and yours is at 10 o'clock, and it's being repeated. And it's every single day. You can see that through the first series.
You're a dream warm-up man.
I thank you. And the great thing about it, it's available on catch-up as well, so lots of exciting plans. Now, you love a bit of poetry, don't you?
I do.
We love a bit of poetry. Do we have Aileen Waits on the phone? No, Aileen. Come on, Aileen. It's going to have to now be in.
You want some poetry in the meantime, do you?
I'll tell you what. This is instead. We wanted to get Aileen on, and we love Aileen. She will come on in the new year. Keep that campaign coming. Dexy's Midnight Runners. Come on, Aileen. Bit of poetry. We have a bit of poetry. You've got a bit of poetry, Mike.
I have. William Shakespeare, rather famously now, and it'll be a pub quiz question for years to come, was the second man to be inoculated. So every morning on the radio, I do a poem as the radio laureate in the John Cooper Clarke voice, because he always does it like that, you know. I did one this morning. It said, William Shakespeare here. Oh, look, it's the Patient's book. Where do we sign our monikers? After me is Titus Andronicus, and we debated that if the first person to be vaccinated was patient 1A, am I 2B or not 2B? I can't remember, but it is December, and this is an historic winter's tale. It's like a pre-Christmas medical sale. By that I mean, is the vaccine a Midsummer Night's Dream? I prefer a jab to a tablet. And yes, I live in a hamlet. It's on me card. No, not too far from the bard. Is this a needle I see before me? The handle towards my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Is there a bill? Oh, I see the vaccine's free. Who made it? Pfizer? Do I still have to wear me visor or a face mask? I thought I'd just ask. I don't need a pre-med or hypnosis. I'm happy to take the second of 800,000 doses. And it's no worse than a visit to the dentist or writing The Tempest. No terrors. If anything, it was a comedy of errors. It was a pleasure, and measure for measure, do we all get the same amount of vaccine? I'm not bluffing, it's much ado about nothing. I'm not scared of needles and pins. Are you vaccinating the Merry Wives of Windsor? Thank goodness the jab was in the arm, so no harm. I was worried about having a pain in my Coriolanus or bottom, which would have been rotten. As you may be worried about your Titania. Have a jab, they don't harm you. It was all right. When do I come back? 12th night? Cry God for Harry, England and St. Pfizer.
Yay! I love it. The taming of the flu. It's going to be good. The wonderful, irrepressible Mike Green. And I'll tell you about what we have on the Andrew Eborn show. We have a few regulars who are equally as zany as you and I. And one such regular is Dawn Parry. How are you, Dawn? Do we have Dawn? Maybe.
I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, there we go. We've got Dawn. How are you doing? Has Dawn frozen? I can't hear you, Dawn. You might have to speak up. And if we can't hear you, we may not. Well, I'll tell you what. This is the joy of trying to get the various people together. So tell me, Mike, you've got a few things out for Christmas.
This is the point, I have to say, where Andrew gets so nervous that we have to put this sign up on the desk. Don't look behind the desk. It's not a pretty sight.
And the trouble is, Mike, hold it up again. Hold it up. Let's have a look. The trouble is, Mike, if you have a look, that he thought that was an instruction, and there's a little pool all around him, which has got to be good.
My joke, I think. You can't turn it back on me like that.
It will look good in the editing. While we try and get Dawn, and somebody will tell me if
Yes.
we get Dawn back, then it'd be a glorious...
Dawn loves you. I saw some posts and
Dawn
she
is
loves
back.
you.
She does, isn't she lovely?
She's almost an Eborn acolyte.
Oh, I love it. And we love that EA, the Eborn
Yeah.
acolytes. And
Yeah.
Dawn, come in, Dawn. Ground control to Major Dawn. Hello. Oh, that is you.
Hello.
How are you? You all right?
It was nothing to do with me. Everything in my setup was fine. No, actually, Mike, no. I'm not an acolyte per se. I am just promoting the programme. I think the show needs to be promoted everywhere, far and wide.
Oh, we love it. But this would say, we love Dawn Parry, which is good. Dawn, you've got somebody with you. Always have somebody with you, and you bring along some of your glorious people, and you're always promoting wonderful books. Who have you got with you today?
I live in a very, very creative part of the world in Somerset. And we're all set for Christmas, as you can see. I've even got a bottle of champagne at the ready. And we have the fabulous Berny O'Riley, who is a psychic, primarily, and is going to give us some hints on what she thinks is going to happen next year. But also, Bernie is a prolific writer and writes under the pseudonym of C.L. Ryan. And I've got 3 of her books here that are all published. And they are the Secret Demon series, all about the paranormal. I'm going to hand over to the fabulous Bernie for a second for her to tell us a few things. Bernie, do you mind if I ask Bernie to do
Oh, no, go for it. Probably be easier with the delay. Go for it. But can I ask just one question of Bernie before you start? Bernie, did you foresee what happened in 2020?
Absolutely not.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the secrets of the psychics. We've cracked it. Nobody knew. So, with that resounding endorsement, tell us what on earth's going to happen in 2021.
You know, 2021, the angels keep saying that Britain is going to become great again. People in this country will go back to being like they were in the war. Suddenly, people are going to find their neighbours. They're going to find new employment. They're going to be entrepreneurs. They're going to build Britain back again. It's a fantastic time. If you are really thinking of doing a new business in this country, next year is the year to do it. Just have a bit of faith. Just grab hold of your angels and say, please help me.
What's happened? What's going on?
Oh.
What's happened? Oh, for God's sake.
Oh, I thought you were acting. I'm so sorry. I thought that was like a bit of acting. I thought all of a sudden a spirit was going to come spookily coming out of the thing when he said, oh my God, what's going on? Much better acting than mine at the top of the show. You were so good, Dawn. No, we could carry on hearing you. Were you halfway through a piece? What happened?
No, what? Me? Bernie?
No.
What are we doing?
No, you suddenly got up. Bernie said all of this about grabbing hold of your angels, and you suddenly leapt out of your seat. And I thought in the normal Dawn Parry way, you were going to dig up some glorious character. But instead, I think you felt you had a technical problem. Did you foresee that, Bernie?
There was. I almost got struck down by my own guitar as well, but thankfully didn't.
So where we... Okay, you wanted to ask a question. Ask Bernie a question. Come on, then. What were you going to ask
2021.
Bernie? Yes.
2021 is going to be a fantastic year for anybody wishing to start a new business. And
Oh, I've got a
now is
sense
the
of
time-
deja vu. I heard that, Bernie. No, I heard that. You told us that. You said, good time for starting a new business. Absolutely, people are reinventing themselves. You said, grab hold of your angels, which I think is fantastic, whoever your angels might be. And then we had that moment of shock, which is wonderful. Give us one more top tip.
Brexit, come on.
Top tip.
tell us
Keep
about-
watching Formula One because big changes are coming, massive. If you're a motorsport fan, keep watching Formula One because there's tons of stuff going on behind the scenes they're not letting you know about.
Oh, what is
There
it?
was
Well,
one-
tell us what they are. Because what I love about this is we can fact check in the same way as you said 2020 didn't know what that was. Tell us about Formula One. Give us one thing which only you know so we can make a bit of money on this because I love this sort of stuff.
Right.
Tell us one thing which only you know what's going to happen in Formula One.
Lewis Hamilton won't be around for much longer.
What's going to... What do you mean? What's the time frame? Next season he won't be here?
He's being pulled in about 10 different directions at the moment, so I don't think he's going to stay in Formula One. He's going to go somewhere else.
In 2021 he's going somewhere else?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. If you're right, we'll get you. I'll tell you what, at the end of 2021, I might get you back and we'll see if that's true. And you're going to say something about Brexit, which is interesting. What's going to happen on Brexit?
Well, Brexit, I think now, the angels are keep telling me not to panic. We mustn't panic about Brexit. It's going to happen either way. It's going to happen. But this time, we mustn't panic about it because lots of stuff is working behind the scenes. As I say, people are going to pull together. We're going to become great as a nation again, and we're going to start believing in ourselves again. Because I think for a long time, Britain's forgotten its identity, and Brexit will bring us all back together to make us realise who we really are.
Fantastic. So, Bernie, really simple question. Is there going to be a deal or no deal?
I don't think we're going to get a deal.
No, not thinking. What did the angels tell you? Deal or no deal?
No deal.
No deal. Okay, so we're going to see. We're going to see. Got two predictions. Lewis Hamilton not in Formula One. Brexit, there's no deal. Go for the hat trick. One final thing.
Oh, I don't know. What do you want me to say?
You don't know. I don't know. No, don't do nothing. It's fine. We will check. We will fact check those psychics. We're going to bring you back, and it's going to be fantastic. You've also got another guest, Dawn. Tell me about your other guest.
I have. Now, this is a young man whom I discovered at a party one evening, a chap called Topper, who you can guess why he's called Topper. Awfully Topper. Anyway, Topper has an unusual water tower of a house. So it's a converted water tower. And I was at this party there, and this incredible young musician turned up. And he was playing the piano, and he was only about 19, possibly 20, 19, I think, at the time. And he's only about 24 now, the fabulous young Jack Calloway. And he now has his own band and is basically, he plays swing. Everything is swing.
Well, let's bring Jack Calloway in. How are you doing, Jack?
I'm very well indeed, yes. Nice to be on the show.
Well, it's glorious. What did you make of Bernie's predictions?
Well, I'm grabbing hold of my angels very tightly,
Hey.
hoping for the best.
Oh, good. Well, that's always encouraging this sort of time of year, isn't it? So talk to me then about what you've been doing in lockdown, because what I find is that people become terribly creative and their creative juices start flowing in a different direction in lockdown, normally performing to big crowds and so on and so forth. That hasn't been possible. What have you been doing?
Well, I've been a professional bandleader and musician for 7 years now, and this has been the most surreal year possible for not just me as a musician and a bandleader, but for artists all over the world. It's affected us all quite deeply. Now, I'm very lucky that I'm on the radio transatlantically, so I still get to do that, luckily. And I've been spending a lot of time composing.
Which is great. I tell you what, as I say, the creative juices, and this is what's happened in lockdown, is we've suddenly discovered new talent. People have been forced to sit down and write and so on and so forth and make that make sense. What have you been composing? What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of a tune which I took to New York last year and has really taken off there, and some of my great heroes in New York are now playing that tune. It's called The Cherry Blossoms of Chelsea.
I love it. Can you give us a little snippet? Have you got something in front of you? Or can you do an a cappella version of it?
an a cappella version. Now, Dawn will tell you I'm not much of a vocalist. I'm more used to shouting at musicians. But
and me in clarinet. Have you got the clarinet?
Do you have your clarinet to hand?
I do, but alas, I have another tune in mind.
Oh, okay, play the other tune. Let's hear the other tune then. Let's hear the other tune. What's the other tune called?
Well, the other tune is luckily in the public domain for you, and it's from 1920, I think it is. It's called Bye Bye Blues, because I'm so looking forward to seeing the end of this year.
It's a great message.
We may indeed go back to touring again next year and bringing joy and debauchery to everyone around the world.
Joy and debauchery. Jack Calloway, let's hear those Bye Bye Blues.
Oh, good Lord, right? Bye-bye blues for you.
Fantastic. Jack, what a star. Jack, Dawn, Bernie, thank you so much for joining me. We'll get you all back and see if those predictions come true in the same way as the 2020 didn't either. But thank you for now. Take care.
Holding on to my angels tightly.
You hold on to your angels.
I will.
Very, very good. And talking of talent, the thing that this has happened in these extraordinary times is we've got new heroes coming out as a result of adversity. And one such hero who I discovered was basically just trying to do a nice little thing for his nan. Talk to me about that. Nanny, and we're joined by Cormac. Hello, Cormac.
Hello.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. How
You're
about
looking
you?
very... I'm not... Oh, look at you. You're the politest guest I've ever had. And I see you brought your big sister with you.
Oh,
yes.
You're lovely.
Who's the young lady next to you?
I'm his mummy.
Oh, there you go. So always a joy. Well, yours is one of, together with Sir Tom Moore and so on and so forth, yours is one of the lovely stories about lockdown. And you basically, your nanny, you weren't able to see her, were you?
No, because of lockdown, which kind of sucks. We used to be able to see her quite often, and we used to be able to do FaceTime calls, like concerts and stuff, where I performed for her. But we couldn't do that because silly Nanny dropped her iPad and it smashed. So we decided to do some YouTube videos instead for her, so she could go onto her laptop and get them. And her favourite song is a song called Danny Boy, and she really loves it. And we put that on the YouTube channel, and it wasn't just Nanny who really liked it. And Helen Lewis, who's the executive producer at Decca, found it and wanted to make an album. And we got going pretty much straight away.
I have to say, Cormac, you are one of the most confident young men we've had on this programme. This is tremendous. Have you done lots of these interviews?
Yes, rather a lot.
I thought, you're so well honed, because what happens is you even got the name check for the person at Decca, so well done you.
Thank you.
So tell me, because I've looked at the album, I've listened to some of it, and we're going to hear some a little bit later as well. Who helped select the songs that you put on that particular album?
It was basically just Mum, I, and some of the people at Decca who I don't know the names of.
Oh, that's all right. You don't need to know. But they know Decca, because I love the idea that they discovered the recording of Danny Boy, wasn't it? Was your nanny's favourite song. They discovered that on YouTube and said, we have to sign this young man. But what happened is you then went to some fantastic recording studios. Do you remember where you went?
Definitely. It was a place called Metropolis where we recorded some of the songs, and it's in London, surprisingly. And there, I recorded in a studio that Freddie Mercury, U2, Adele, and a couple more really famous people had recorded in. And I sung into a microphone that Stormzy had sung into. and I played on Freddie Mercury's Fazioli piano, and I've got a glove in that room over there.
I was going to say, I remember you had to put your special gloves on so you didn't damage it. But you were quite crafty, weren't you? Because you thought, if I was going to get Freddie's DNA, the way I'm going to do that, because I'll have to wash my hands occasionally, which would be very important, I would put some gloves on, because you've now got Freddie's DNA on those gloves.
Yes.
So if I gave you a fiver, could I have them?
No.
I didn't think you did. Well, I'll tell you, we have within this studio, do you know who Mike Reed is?
I do.
Ah, you see, Mum would. Well, I'll tell you what, let me introduce you to the legendary broadcaster, Mike Reed, who will tell you, there we go, this is Cormac's mum. Tell Cormac who else played at Metropolis, who else recorded there?
Oh, so many people, but I did all the interviews for Innuendo with Queen there, because Freddie wasn't well, and they didn't want anyone to know he wasn't well, so I did all the interviews for Around the World, and then we did Queen for an Hour, which is the last interview with all four of them as well. So it was, it's a magical studio in Chiswick. Very, very good. Yeah, everyone's recorded there. And doing Danny Boy, I just love Danny Boy. And what a lot of people don't know, it was an English solicitor who wrote the words.
Good heavens, those lawyers are so creative. We love that.
I know. I thought you'd like that.
Come on, it's going to be good. Did you know that about Danny Boy?
We knew it wasn't written by an Irish person, yes.
Yes, I know.
The tune was. The tune's an old Irish tune. But the English words are by... So come on, where's your Danny Boy, Mr. Legal?
Well, I should write a song, shouldn't I?
You should.
We've got the Andrew Eborn jingle, which is out there, which is what I love as well. Ah,
there
yes.
you go. You can Cormac. How's about that?
Oh, no, I
Cormac
think...
boy.
So, Cormac boy, in fact, that's a good idea, isn't it? So, Cormac, tell me, do you write as well? Are you super talented in scribbling things down?
Unfortunately not, but I do love to play the piano as well.
Oh, right. Oh, that's good. So which other instruments do you play? Piano's great.
I play the piano and I sing and I do theory.
And you do what, sorry?
Piano theory and singing.
Piano theory. Okay, that's really cool. So now that you're a superstar, what happens, and you've got Freddie Mercury's DNA on your gloves, what happens at school? What does everybody think of you at school?
Everyone says I'm a celebrity in quotation marks.
Oh, they do the quotation marks, do they? Oh, no, you're a real celebrity. You don't need the quotation marks.
It's quite funny, though.
It is funny, isn't it? And have you signed your first autograph yet?
Yes.
Who was that for?
I've signed countless copies of my album for friends of Mum's and friends of mine as well.
And aunties and uncles and various things like that too.
So they're all going to get it. They're all going to get one in their stocking, which is going to be lovely. Now tell me, because it all started with Nanny, tell me what her reaction was when you told her that Decca had signed you up and you got Freddie Mercury's DNA on your gloves. What did Nanny say?
I don't think she really said anything. She just went, "Oh," as she normally does, and was very gobsmacked.
Gobsmacked! Nanny was gobsmacked. Yeah. Well, she sounds absolutely wonderful. It sounds very, very good. So, what are your plans for 2021? Do you make New Year's resolutions?
Yes. To keep my feet on the ground and just take whatever comes into my stride, if that's...
I'll tell you, Cormac, you are an absolute delight in here. But I'll let you into a little secret. You can keep your feet on the ground, but you can't keep your feet on the ground if you're walking in the air.
Good point.
I'll tell you what, it's lovely to see. We're going to hear the song a little bit later, but for now, Cormac and Cormac's mum, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us on. Much appreciated. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great Christmas. We'll play your song a little bit later. Weren't they delightful?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. You know, you can be confident without being arrogant. That's a key in our business.
I can't be.
No, I'm talking about you. But yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, he was lovely. And it is difficult, I think, if you make it young for any young person. You know, you can get precocious. People can tell you that. And there's a problem at school sometimes. People say, oh, who do you think you are? So it's very, very difficult. It's a very fine line if you have luck as a very young person. of the people that are envious, the people that want to be your friends. You don't know whether they're really your friends or not. So it's a tough one. I mean, it's a lovely thing to happen, but you need good parents, a good family, and good friends to steer you through it, I think.
I know, it makes a lot of sense. And Aled Jones, I mean, he famously did Walking in the Air. How old was he when he did it?
Oh, he was young, but then Aled had to do, I remember him saying to me, he had to do a year or 18 months out. He said, I have to stop singing when his voice broke. He said, if you sing through that period, apparently it destroys your voice, so they said. So he had to completely stop singing for 18 months, 2 years, and then start again a couple of years later after his voice had broken.
That is quite, and he's carried on, got a glorious career now as a presenter himself and as a broadcaster. I mean, Cormac is so gloriously confident. He's been thrust into the spotlight. He knows how to answer those questions. What advice would you give him?
Well, I think your parents and your friends are the best ones to give advice. I mean, a peer group is that's always a good measure. Because your parents can say one thing to you. You know, your parents said to me, oh, your hair's too long. You know, why are you wearing those stupid clothes for? And you think, yeah, but it's your parents. If your peer group said your hair's too long and your clothes are strange, then you sort of take notice. It depends, really. I mean, you get to that age, I think, where you're 12, 13, 14, you're still a kid and you still need your parents, but you're also growing up and there's a bit of you that maybe thinks you don't need your parents. So it's a very difficult sort of period. That's a pivotal period where you are growing into something else. And it's a very difficult one to manage sometimes. I mean, it's a tricky time because you're doing exams at school, you're trying to keep all that together, you're trying to keep your relationship with your parents together, you're suddenly meeting people that you might find an interest in, and you find sport as well. I mean, I know people whose parents took them around the country playing tennis from the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, and they got to a really high standard, and they turned around when they were 12 and said, Dad, I've met a girl, or I want to play football. And you go, no, I've spent all this time, and now you want to play football. But you sort of want to be with your mates and something like tennis is a lonely career. Singing can be a lonely career because it's just you. If you're touring, you're in a hotel somewhere for everybody. There's not a gang of you that you can have fun with. It can be tricky.
And it is very tricky. I mean, this has been an extraordinary year for everybody. How has 2020 been for Mike Reid?
I think it's been a time, we were talking earlier, you're clairvoyant about writing and creating. It's been a year when artists haven't been able to go out and play. Nobody's been able to play live. And we've all been writing. I've written with more songwriters this year than I've ever written with because we've had time. And all the artists have done the same. There was something like 50 Christmas records this year.
50?
Yeah.
Good heavens.
It's been an incredible year because everyone's had time to write. And normally people will be out on the road, they'd be gigging, they'd be rehearsing, they'd be touring, they'd be flying to other countries. They're all at home. So I remember John Lodge and the Moody's saying to me, I made this album. He said, I didn't think anyone was ever going to hear it. And Marty Wilde the same, making lockdown albums. Everybody's done it. So it's been a very creative year from songwriting point of view.
No, absolutely. But you have spent, several years in the limelight yourself. You've mixed with the best of all of them. What have been your favourite Christmases and who with?
I think your favourite Christmases are when you're very young. I interviewed my grandmother. Both my grandmothers were 99. I interviewed my maternal grandmother once, and I remember saying to her, what was your favourite decade? And she said unhesitatingly, the first one. I said, you mean it got worse? She said, oh, no, I've had a great life. It's been fantastic. She said, but the first one are full of great memories because you have no responsibility. You don't have to think about money. You don't think about jobs. You don't think about relationships. You don't think about anything at all. It's just the sun's out every day. You're just having fun. And I think that's probably the early Christmases, you know, when you wake up in the morning and there's a massive fort and soldiers or a bicycle. Those are the ones that I think for most people. And then it snows and you look out of the window and the magic. I still feel that now. You know, when it snows, it's still magical. I've got to get out there.
We should have asked our psychic whether it's going to be a white Christmas, and we could have better on that. Mind you, she did say she knew nothing about 2020, so could have just made it up. But 2020 actually has seen a few milestones, hasn't it? We had John Lennon. It was 40 years since that tragedy happened. What are your memories of John Lennon?
Well, I had to do the show that night on Radio 1. And I was asked to come and do it, and I did it. A lot of people the other day said, we've got really fond memories of that show. My father came round in the morning and found me in tears, and he was perplexed because he'd never seen me cry. I don't think, not only anybody, you know, whacked me or something, but I mean, from emotion, I don't think he'd ever seen me cry, and he was very surprised. And the weird thing was, the day before, I won't go into too much detail, but a guy that bought Lennon's house was outside Radio 1 when I came out. And I said, what do you want? And he said, come with me. And he said, I want you to take the door to Lennon's house. It's in the house next door. A chap called Reardon said, it's in his house. Go tomorrow morning and get it first thing. And I said, yeah, okay. No. He said, promise me. First thing tomorrow morning. I said, okay. And I woke up, heard the news, and I thought, oh, if I don't get it now, I'm never. So I went round. It was the door to Kenwood. So Paul, George, everyone had carved that. Everyone used to walk through this door. And I kept it. And this guy said, I know you'll never sell it. He said, and you're a Beatles fan. So I kept it. And years later, Julian Lennon came down for the weekend with his girlfriend. And he said, do you know, if you know the house, don't you? He said, if ever it's for sale, let me know, because I'd like to buy it. And I said, before you go, I've got something for you. And I gave him the door.
Brilliant. There you go. What a joy. Now, another thing which happened, apart from the big anniversaries, was Cliff, your mate Cliff, turned the big 8-0. How did he celebrate?
He celebrated by bringing out an album, bringing out a book, breaking all the chart records he could, having a top 3 album, became the first person for, in that many, it was 8 decades or something, to get a top 5 album. Extraordinary. What an extraordinary career for a 17-year-old lad. You could never predict. Even your clairvoyant couldn't have predicted how that would have gone. A most extraordinary career. And he's still passionate about it. He's still making music. There's the book, look. Cliff, the Great 80. And he has his own book out, I have to say, The Dreamer. But every now and again he brings out an autobiography. So, yeah, it's been a fantastic year for him. Gone back to Barbados to sit in the sun. So, yeah, it's been a good one.
It is very good. I mean, you've got a few books out this year because a great historian, and we're talking about, with Stellar TV, some of the things that we're going to be looking at and new series that we're going to start exploring. Talk to me about the Blue Plaques and that sort of idea.
Yeah, Blue Plaques have been going since the late 1860s. Byron was the first one. House was knocked down. They put it back again on John Lewis, I think, now.
Great Christmas ad, though. Isn't that lovely? Does that make you well up the Christmas ads?
Yeah. Oh, they're always very good, aren't they? They're always very good.
But they've got a Blue Plaque there.
Yeah. Napoleon III is the oldest one down in Westminster. But they've been going since the late 1860s with the Art Society did it. And then the LCC took over in 1901. 65, the GLC took over, and I think in the mid-80s, English Heritage took over. And I was always involved with the Heritage in the 90s, 80s, doing a lot of plaque in the early 2000s. And then I'd shared a few platforms with English Heritage talking about history, because I'd been on archaeological digs from a very, very young age. And when I left home, I gave about 12,000 artifacts to the local museum. So I always had a passion about history. And it's interesting because we formed the British Plaque Trust. Robin Gibb and myself were always passionate about history, and we discussed it a lot because English Heritage was stopping, and they're London-centric anyway. Their plaques are mainly London. And then they sort of came back again. So we've been going for 10 years, and I guess we were 70 or 80 plaques in. And then I took it into the Commonwealth. I thought 2.4 billion people, was it 53, 54 countries in the Commonwealth, a third of the globe. It'd be rather nice, especially this year. So we did the first one in Barbados. Talking with Antigua, with Malta, various other places, Belize, more in Barbados as well. So
and it is glorious. And you and I have walked around London with you in my ear and me with a camera following us. And every corner of every street, there's a little bit of history that unfolds.
Absolutely, there is. That's why I thought it'd be rather nice to do a TV series. A bit Who Do You Think You Are meets Walking Around the Coast, meets, old castles, meets everything. And the Blue Plaques cover all genres, of course. Science, music, theatre, film, poetry, sport, everything. So I put together a series that could run and run, called The Writing on the Wall. After the book.
After the book, I'll tell you what I love. I'm here just plugging all your jolly books. That's what it is. If you haven't got your Christmas stocking full yet, you've got your Cliff, you've got your Writing on the Wall. What else? You've got your Denmark Street. Tell me about Denmark Street.
You're a Barrow boy, really,
yeah,
aren't you?
Get them all. I'll tell you what, I'll throw in an Andrew Eborn Book of Failure with a foreword by Mike Reed, if you're lucky. Tell us about Denmark Street.
Denmark Street. I'm doing a series of 1,000 years of 6 London streets. Denmark Street is the first. The second one, Cheapside. I'm just proofing to send in now, 100,000 words. And I'm 2/3 the way out Piccadilly. What is great is walking down a street, metaphorically, and going through each door and going back in time through the history. and it is extraordinary. I mean, Cheapside is extraordinarily complex. Denmark Street is shorter, but amazing. I mean, everybody was there. It was the street of publishers and songwriters for 100 years. And before that, I mean, there's so much history. It goes back really to 1100 and Henry I's wife, Matilda. I mean, every royal woman was called Matilda at the time. It gets very complex, so we won't go there. But Henry I's wife, Matilda, created a leper hospital in 1100, where St Giles Church is now.
And we looked at Matilda, and we had Charles Spencer on previously, looking at his great book, I love it, called The White Ship.
Yeah.
And that's all about Henry I, and he had 2 legitimate children, as you know, William, who perished in this terrible disaster, and it's 900 years on. But Matilda was his legitimate daughter. Absolutely,
yeah, and Charles's last book about Charles II and his flight abroad after the Battle of Worcester, that actually mentions various people, including Richard Penderell. Richard Penderell was the guy that helped get him out of the country. And if you walk across from Denmark Street to St Giles Church, where the leper hospital was, there is a gravestone there to Richard Penderell. And I said to Charlie, I said, did you know Richard Penderell's grave is here in this church where that Matilda created on the site of this? So history does, you know, come round and round. It all ties in somewhere along the line.
And what we were discussing with Charles Spencer about this, what happens is the great teachers, and you start to appreciate those in lockdown, the great teachers are those who can instill enthusiasm in their things. They're storytellers. It's not just dry facts and figures. They are storytellers. And Charles Spencer is a fantastic storyteller.
Totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Yeah. I mean, Charlie writes it like it's a novel. I said with Charles II flight, I said to him, oh, it's like John Wilkes Booth flight after killing, you know, Lincoln. And you're with them every inch of the way, behind every bush. You know, have they got me? I'm hiding. It's wonderfully, wonderfully told. And you're right. I think.
Sorry, what was that phrase? And what?
What's that?
What was that phrase? And what?
I don't remember. What was it?
You're what? You're right, is what you said.
Oh, you're right.
I thank you.
Oh, I see. Oh, yes, you're. No, but you're right. We're kids with teachers. If you get the right teacher at school, it can really lift you as a kid. It's like Robin Williams, you know, and the Poetry Society. I mean, if you get a teacher that inspires rather than is a dry academic that says, read from here, read from there, yeah, we've all had those. And other teachers that absolutely inspire you, get one of those, and that can set you up for life. Very, very important, having teachers that are allowed to inspire.
Oh, and you're absolutely right. And I think what happens is they've now got a real appreciation of teachers. In lockdown, when everybody's had to do homeschooling and the difficulties that they've got, people realise there's a real skill for teachers. And it's encapsulated by that Banksy, the new artwork this year, where Banksy basically had a child playing and it had a bin next to the child. And in the bin was Superman and Spider-Man and Wonder Woman cast aside. But the child was playing with an NHS nurse. Held high, really the proudest toy of all, the new superheroes, which we love. That sort of encapsulates the whole of 2020, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was an extraordinary year. I mean, a year that unprecedented. None of us could have seen it coming.
Even Bernie, the psychic, didn't see it coming, which is what I love. Unprecedented use of the word unprecedented, I believe.
Absolutely. And we all, I mean, some people were bored, I know, oh, I don't know what to do. And other people just went, okay, you know what, reinvent yourself. As she said, next year I think will be a good year for entrepreneurs. People coming up with ideas, different things, and actually doing it rather than sitting around thinking about it.
And that's what I love about this. What I love about Stellar TV, we did do it in a matter of weeks. On 16th of November, I jokingly said it took years and years of planning. What I love about the team here, we just said, we'll do it. Get on the bus, as Cliff would say on summer holiday, and the party starts here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think people are reinventing, coming up with platforms rather than linear TV necessarily. So yeah, you always have to reinvent. And I think just because something has been invented, I'm not talking about this now, doesn't mean we have to use it. When anything new is invented, people go, oh, this is the latest thing. Well, it might be the latest thing, but it might not suit us. And I think this year, a lot of people have gone back to basics. Yeah. A lot of people have been at home. They spent more time in the garden. They've relaxed more. They realize they don't have to drive to work anymore. They can possibly work from home, which saves all the fuel consumption, you know, and ecologically.
I love it. And we've been talking to various environmentalists and so on and so forth, all about the environment and what's going to happen. So the highlights then for you next year, what are you hoping for?
Oh, highlights me. Well, we're meant to be touring Great Expectations again, so I'm hoping that more people are going to be allowed in theatres. More songwriting. We're launching the new radio station, Nation Radio UK, on January the 4th, where they've let the jocks out, and we're running the station. Yes, no other station does that. So yeah, I've always been, even when I was in the establishment, they've always thought of me as anti-establishment. But I think you've got to do that. You've got to push the barriers, push the boundaries, come up with new ideas. Think outside the box. Come up with a cliche and just do it.
Come up with a cliche and just do it.
Yeah.
I love it as a wonderful principle. And of course, Stellar TV, we've got many, many plans with Stellar TV. We're launching some of these series, which is going to be brilliant. And we're also encouraging people. It's going to be much more participation. So we'll be curating some new talent. We're bringing them a lot of new talent we've had on the show this year as well. And the Heritage Chart itself, what are your plans for that?
Well, we're talking about that at the moment. It's really taken a hold, the Heritage Chart. We did it in the That Was Then, This Is Now TV series as well. We're doing it on the radio, and we're doing it with the news station as well. TV-wise, there are a few ideas. I mean, I had a sniff the other day from Amazon, and you think, oh, suddenly it's getting out there that this is something new, it's innovative, it's providing a service, and it's bringing in the people and the talent that the other stations, TV and radio, aren't touching.
Absolutely. Mike Reed, it's been an absolute pleasure. Whatever 2021 will bring, I guarantee we'll do something together somewhere.
Absolutely.
Loving it. Mike Reed, thank you very much. And thank you to all of my guests this year since we launched on St Andrew's Day. It has been an absolute delight. If you'd like to take part in any parts of the show, do write to me at Stellar TV. You can follow us at Andrew Eborn, at Stellar TV. 4, because there are 4 stars in this glorious thing. And if you want to be a talent, we can shine a spotlight on you. Don't forget, you can still get those jingles in there. Send in your entry. You can either be I love or I hate Andrew Eborn. Either way is good. But I promise you, we'll finish on a superstar. That superstar is Cormac. He's an absolute wonderful rising talent. And we're going to finish with him and Walking on the Air.
Across the world, the villages go by like dreams. The rivers and the hills, the forests and the streams. Children gaze open-mouthed, taken by suddenly